By 7:15 a.m., the 7th floor war room looked less like a battlefield and more like a clinic. The sticky notes were grouped, the dashboards were calm, and someone had written 3 words in dry erase over the doorway. Patia's policy. Ethan got there early and stood at the back while Maya walked the team through a new ritual she'd drafted overnight. 2-minute comm check, she said. Green means you can breathe. Yellow means ask for help. Red means stop. It's not a confession. It's a signal. We fix systems, not people. They moved fast. Canary, green. Rollbacks, green. Test flake rate, yellow. An SRE flagged a noisy alert rule that kept paging on harmless jitter. Kill it or tune it, Maya said. We don't train for fire drills by pulling alarms at random. At 8, Jamal wheeled in a whiteboard with a grid that looked like a parole calendar. Rest windows. If you take an on-call page after midnight, you log 12 hours off, he said. Not a suggestion, a rule. Your manager will enforce it, or will talk to your manager. Somebody snorted. HR with teeth. Didn't think I'd live to see it. Teeth make smiles, honest, Jamal said, deadpan. Laughter cracked the tension. Ethan watched it all, saying nothing, writing everything. He had 45 minutes before the daily with Claudia and investor relations. He'd promised the board weekly reporting for a quarter. Weekly only mattered if daily had a spine. 8:30. He took the glass stairs up one flight for a hastily added meeting, 90-day operating plan. Claudia was already there with a printed deck and a cup of tea that steamed like a threat. David joined, sleeves rolled. Glasses slid up into his hair like a mechanic. Optics are still moving faster than facts, Claudia began. The blog post about your undercover foray has spawned a short thread on Blind and a longer one on a fund's Discord. If we're doing this charter, we need a crisp external line and a crisp internal set of guardrails. We have 8 clauses, Ethan said, sliding the draft. HR and legal tuned language. No mandatory weekends by default is non-negotiable. Claudia scanned without blinking. Fine. But 2 constraints. First, we define exceptions so narrowly it's practically a fire code. Second, we publish lagging and leading indicators weekly defect density. MTTR, deploy frequencies, so anyone calling this laziness looks unlettered. David nodded. We're already pulling that data. Also proposing a small developer experience squad to kill toil test flake quarantine, faster CI cache, headcount. Claudia asked, pen poised like a scalpel. 4, David said. 2, she said. 3 and a contractor for 6 weeks, Ethan said, and didn't flinch. Claudia's pen hovered, then landed. 3 and a contractor. Cost neutral, offset by cancelling the Q3 vanity billboard by David barked a laugh. Billboards don't fix broken pipelines. Billboards make sales teams feel seen, Claudia said flatly. But yes, kill the billboards. I are dialed in. A fund manager wanted to know if sustainable pace was code for slower shipping. Ethan put up 3 plain charts. Failures after weekend pushes. MTTR after enforced rest. Attrition curves. We don't go slower, he said. We go steadier. We spend less on rework and recruiters. If margin is religion, this is how you tithe. Fine, the fund manager said, unimpressed but not hostile. We'll watch the numbers. They always did. By 10:15, Ethan was back on 7 at the Sustainable Pace Working Group. Legal had tightened the verbs. HR had added definitions. Ava sat at the edge of the table, typing as people spoke, translating potential into prose. Maya ran the meeting like a launch. Principle. Practice, proof, she said, ticking her pen against the notebook. Principle. No mandatory weekend work. Practice. Exceptions have named sponsors and incident IDs. Proof. Postmortems. Published to the whole company. Add a bullet, Jamal said. If a manager schedules an optional Saturday and ties it to performance, it's treated as mandatory. That's a breach. Good, Maya said. Names, not nouns. They knocked through the rest. Rest windows, badge policy, planning buffers, deployment guardrails. No punishment for raising risk, monthly metrics. Stage signing, next Wednesday, noon, Jamal said. On 7, people will cry PR, Ava warned. Let them. We'll make it boring. A stage, 8 signatures, a Q&A, then back to work. Boring wins, Maya said. Ethan's phone buzzed. A push alert from a tech finance newsletter. Whitman Dynamics quietly hires Coal Systems senior PM. Sources cite chaos. He kept his face still. At noon, he took his open hours again at the cafeteria table by the espresso machine. No handlers, no scripts. A back-end engineer with a Stetson sticker on his laptop asked about the encore rotation and ranch chores. A designer wanted to know if no net new features after 7 p.m. meant design could still work late if they wanted. You can, Ethan said. No one can tell you to. A facilities tech walked up, grease on his sleeve, and leaned on the chair like it had been waiting for him. We don't do Slack, he said. We do elevators. When you move teams weekend of, we get hurt. Ethan wrote, no weekend moves without coup sign-off. Sometimes culture changed because you put a signature in front of a noun and let someone wield it. Midway through the hour, Maya appeared with 2 paper cups. Open hours on 7 looked full, she said, sliding a cup across. They were, he said, and expensive. For you. She asked, for the ways I'd been wrong, he said. She took the seat opposite, flipped her notebook open. Clause 6, she said. No punishment for raising risk. We need a test case. What do you mean? She rotated the notebook. There was a screenshot of an email from a mid-level PM in another org. Optional Saturday rehearsal for a demo 2 weeks out. In the bullet points. Attendance will be remembered at performance review time. The subject line chirped with cheerfulness, like a lifeguard whistle. Send it to Jamal, Ethan said. The answer immediate. Escalate to David. We enforce the rule before we sign it. By 2, the message went out company-wide from HR. Optional does not equal mandatory. Then from David, rehearsal cancelled. We practice in daylight. Maya sent nothing at all and put her pen down for the first time that day at 3:07. The stock dipped 3% on a rumor thread that made sustainable pace sound like a hammock. Slack fluttered. A few people posted popcorn emojis. More DMD managers. Are we in trouble? Ava dropped 2 lines into #general. We don't measure commitment by hours, but by results. Weekly metrics will be shared internally. Back to work. No pep talk. The channel calmed. A little after 4, Ethan stepped outside to call his mother, and then didn't. Instead, he dialed the care center whose number he'd seen pop up on Maya's screen. This is Ethan Cole, he said. I'm calling about a patient, Mrs. Brooks. He caught himself. I'm a colleague of her daughter. I wanted to make sure our insurance processing isn't causing delays. We're current, the administrator said, wary but kind. Ms. Brooks pays on time. She's very organized. Of course she is, Ethan said, and hung up before he made it weirder. He wasn't rescuing anyone. He was auditing himself for the reflex. Back on 7, the test flake rate had dropped from yellow to green. The new DevEx Squad 3 engineers and a 6-week contractor stood at a whiteboard, ugly drawing a faster cache strategy. Ethan walked past, pointed to a box. "Miss there and you'll thrash disk," he said. "You code?" One asked, more surprised than skeptical. "Used to," Ethan said. "Still," Maya said from behind him. "He still does." He hadn't heard her come up. The compliment wasn't big or decorative. It landed with the weight of acknowledgement. At 5:12. A new problem tried to slip in the side door. AVP, in a different org, replied dull to HR's optional, does not equal mandatory, with a clarifying note that sounded a lot like a carve-out for his team. Jamal appeared in the war room like a thundercloud in loafers. "I'll handle it," he said. 30 minutes later, the VP posted a correction. The teeth had bitten. People noticed at 6:02. Ethan's phone buzzed with a calendar invite he didn't expect. Sustainable Paste Stage Logistics Walkthrough. Location, 7th floor atrium. Wednesday, 8 a.m., 48 hours out. Agenda, mic check, banner placement, 2 stools, 8 pens. He showed up at 8 on the dot. Facilities taped down power strips. A junior designer held up 2 mock-ups for the backdrop. One said, "We build better when we are whole." The other said names. Not nouns in a font that looked like it had been stolen from a protest sign and cleaned up by a grown-up. "Second one," Maya said, without waiting for consensus. "Second one," Ethan agreed. "Try the mics," Jamal said. Ethan took one and didn't love how his voice sounded in the atrium air. Maya took the other and sounded like she always did, as if she'd been practicing without knowing it. "We'll sign," she said into the empty space. "We'll take questions. We'll get back to work." Ava walked in, phone pressed to her ear, and covered the receiver. "Heads up. Whitman plans to host a developer town hall on YouTube tomorrow night about sustainable speed. He's working the algorithm. Let him," Maya said. "We'll work the product. Still," Ava said, "if anyone's tempted to doom, remind them to stop." "We'll remind them to ship," Ethan said, later. In the quiet that happens only in an office after 9, Ethan and Maya ended up alone at the espresso machine. The hand-lettered note names, not nouns, stilted a little. "You're going to get flack," she said, rinsing a cup, "for signing something you can't fully control." "I know," he said. "I can control who signs and what happens if we break it. People will test it," she said, "to see if it's real." "They already are," he said, "and we're answering." She set the cup to dry. "I don't hand out faith for free," she said, "but data and behavior rent a room." "I'll take the sublease," he said, a beat, not quite a smile. "Wednesday," she said. "Wednesday," he echoed. He walked to the balcony alone and watched fog drag its hem over the bay. His phone buzzed. A text from Claudia. "Board wants first weekly by Friday 5 p.m. Keep it to 1 page. Another from an unknown number. "You sign Wednesday, you own the consequences Thursday. Bring an umbrella." To put the phone away. He couldn't control weather. He could control signatures and rooms. and whether he showed up to hear the truth before it turned into a rumor with a headline. Back inside, he passed the atrium once more. The banner mock-up leaned against a column. Nams, not nouns. In marker, someone had added a smaller line at the bottom, almost too light to read. Charters don't keep promises. People do. He didn't know who wrote it. He hoped they'd hold him to it. By 11:55 a.m., the 7th floor atrium looked nothing like a launch party and everything like a town meeting. No balloon arch, no hype video, just a waist-high table with 8 pence, 2 stool mics, and a canvas backdrop that said, in clean black letters, NEM S, not nouns. Facilities had taped power strips, flat, and rolled out a thin grey carpet that made the space feel borrowed rather than staged. That was the point. Ethan stood off to the side with Jamal, watching people trickle in from engineering pods and design corners and facilities closets. Backpacks dropped, laptops half closed. The company was here in hoodies, in steel-toe boots, in cardigans with coffee stains. He felt the familiar boardroom urge to control the narrative and let it pass. Today had to look like what it was. Jamal touched his elbow. 2 minutes. We don't sermonize. We sign, we take 10 questions, we go back to work. Good, Ethan said. The work is the point. Maya arrived without ceremony, notebook under her arm, eyes scanning the crowd the way she scanned dashboards for signal. She didn't look at Ethan first. She looked at the banner, at the pens, at the empty stools, checking for the telltale fingerprints of theatre. Finding few, she took a place up front with the other signers. Jamal stepped to the mic. Thanks for coming, he said, voice steady. This charter is a set of constraints we think will make us faster by making us saner. 8 clauses. 8 signatures. Then questions. He didn't read the preamble. Ava had written it, so it could live online. It didn't need a performance. Jamal gestured instead, and the signers moved in order. HR. Legal, David. The SRE lead. The head of design, Maya, Jamal, and finally Ethan. Each wrote their names, big enough to be read from the second row, small enough to fit on a single line. No flourish, no staged handshake. When Ethan leaned over the canvas, the pen felt heavier than it was. He uncapped it and signed. Ethan Cole, not with the slashing speed he used on check requests and board minutes. Slower, legible. A name he'd have to answer to. Jamal took the first questions. On-call rest windows. If a page comes at 11:55 p.m., does the 12-hour clock start at midnight, or the moment the incident is resolved? Moment the incident is resolved, David said. And if it runs past to a .m, expect a manager to push your morning meetings, optional Saturday rehearsals that show up in performance reviews. Someone shouted from the back. Breach, Jamal said, without looking at his notes. Escalate. We enforce. A back-end engineer asked if no net new features after 7 p.m. meant no experiments. Push a feature flag if you want, the SRE lead answered. But we don't ship net new to prod at 9 p.m. and then pretend we're surprised. Maya got one that landed closer to bone. How will you protect people who say this is impossible on that timeline from being labeled difficult? Clause 6, she said, tapping the banner. Raising risk is performance positive. HR captures it. Managers evaluated on it. If your manager retaliates, that manager's manager hears from me and Jamal. A murmur half relief, half-wheel saran through the crowd. Ethan took 2 questions. What happens if the board hates this? One person asked. They've given us 90 days and asked for weekly metrics, he said. We'll publish them internally and deliver them to the board. If the data says we're wrong, we'll change. If the data says we're right and optics are noisy, we'll grow a spine. Laughter flickered. It wasn't approval. It was recognition. Last question was a dare. Will the CEO keep open hours? On 7? Yes, Ethan said. Fridays, 9 to 11, tabled by the espresso machine. No cameras. Jamal closed it with a calendar reminder and a back to work. People didn't cheer. They dispersed, which, to Ethan, felt like the best version of applause. At 1:40 p.m., the demo dry run hit green across the board. Canary rolled, tests held. The new DevX squad had quarantined a handful of flaky sweets, and the pipeline moved like a metronome, steady, not showy. Maya ran the checklist, pencil tapping once at each line dependencies. Feature flags, rollback path, reloser, monitoring thresholds. Her voice had that particular crispness that makes a room move without raising the decibel level. Ethan hovered near a terminal, not to supervise, but because proximity focused him. He caught himself wanting to say, "Nice work, team," and said nothing. Maya had the voice here. She glanced over once, an acknowledgement without ceremony, and handed the talking to an SRE who'd earned it. At 3:05, Ava slid into the doorway, laptop under her arm, look that said incoming. Whitman's going live at 6 o'clock, she said. YouTube town hall on sustainable speed. Teaser clip implies. We wrote the charter because we can't recruit senior talent. He'll have a couple of ex-employees on. Let him trend, Maya said, eyes on the dashboard. We'll ship. Ava nodded. I'll monitor and pre-write 2 lines for #general. No dunking, no defensiveness. Ethan kept his face neutral. Tyler craved sparring. Starving him was the play at 5:28. The alert fired, USWEST, to networking degradation latency spiking. Not their fault. Their problem, the room's murmur, dropped a register. People pivoted without flinching. Maya's voice cut clean. Incident channel open. SRE on point is Priya. Product decision maker is me. Exception sponsor. She looked at Ethan. Ethan Cole, he said, already typing into the template. Exception sponsor. Ethan Cole. Incident. ID 202-51001. NWU-SW2. Scope. Read-only mode for low-impact paths. Throttle. Non-critical batch. Rest windows enforced post-incident. Protocol says we can run beyond 7 if the incident is active, Priya said, tying her hair back with a rubber band from her wrist. We lock scope at read. No hotfix features. Lock it, Maya said. Comes every 15. If we breach error budget for more than 5 minutes, we pull the big lever. Ethan watched the charter stand its first test under load. Not an excuse to slow down. A harness to move precisely. He felt the tug to start offering opinions and stepped back. Names, not nouns, cut both ways. At 5:43, Priya called it, error budget breached. We pull. The switch to read-only hit the smallest surface they could manage. Support drafted a note in plain English and pushed it only to the affected customers. Ava tweaked 2 words and hit send. No adjectives that lied. Just the truth and the clock. By 6:12, the cloud vendor rolled out a mitigation. Latency fell like a curtain. By 6:25, Radoni lifted. The room exhaled. Priya wrote the incident end time into the template like a litigator. Maya pointed at the rest window's whiteboard. If you touched a pager after 5, you log 12 off. Don't argue. We have coverage. Copy, Priya said, already peeling off her headset. Ethan signed the exception formally with his full name. It read less like a permission slip than like accountability in ink. This is on me. He met Maya's eyes. She nodded approval for the process, not the person. At 6:32, Whitman's live stream spun up. The chat scrolled angry hearts and smug laughter. A moderator with a too earnest smile introduced Tyler, who looked like a commercial for down jackets. We believe in sustainable speed, Tyler said, emphasis placed like a thumb. You can be kind to developers and ship faster than the competition. You don't need performative charters, just better leadership. Ava posted 2 lines in #general and then muted the stream. We don't respond to YouTube, she wrote. We respond with product and the weekly metrics Friday at 5. Back to work. Most people closed the tab. A few hate. The spike passed like weather. Ethan's phone buzzed with a link from an unknown numberer. Timestamp clipped from the stream. He didn't click. He watched the war room instead. Tacos arriving in a cardboard tray. Maya telling people to eat first. Priya handing off her laptop and walking out because a rule said she could and a manager said she should. That, he thought, was the reply by 8:10. The floor had thinned to the kind of diehards Maya tried to send home and sometimes failed too. She did another lap you out. You, tomorrow at 10. You, I'll walk you to the elevator so you actually go and end it at the espresso machine. Where Ethan was rinsing a paper cup like a person stalling for 1 more minute. You signed the exception with your name, she said. Matter of fact, that's the clause, he said. Names, not nouns. Good, she said. Because people remember nouns like the business as feelings. Names are receipts. He smiled. Receipts are how you pass audits. She didn't smile back, not quite. There's something else, she said, folding the dish towel over the sink edge with the kind of precision that meant the conversation mattered. A friend sent me a clip from Whitman's stream. He flashed a blurry still of our floor. Badge reads Evan Clark, hoodie, back turned. You were on that floor as a contractor. The week you say you were undercover. He went still. I'm not asking for a performance, she said, voice low. I'm asking for the courtesy you asked of us. No surprises. He could lie. He could deflect. He could say the photo was too blurry to prove anything. He could talk about intent and board pressure and signal. He could do a dozen things he had trained himself to do. Evan was me, he said. Maya didn't move for a heartbeat. Then she nodded once, as if checking off a box she had already drawn. You worked in my room, on my team, under a name you chose, she said. You let me put my trust in a stranger, and then you stood on a stage and asked me to put it in you again. I did, he said, and I should have told you sooner. I told myself I was protecting the signal. I was protecting myself. You were protecting control, she said. Yes, he said. There was nothing else to say. She tapped the banner in the distance with 2 fingers' names. Not nounces, if reminding herself what the room had asked of itself. Okay, she said, finally. Here are my terms. No more masks. No more protecting signal by hiding who you are. Sit in stand-ups as the person you are. Take questions with your name. And if you ever use proximity to me or my team for PR, you can sign 1,000 charters and I won't believe a word. Understood, he said. Good, she said. Because we ship in 48 hours. She tossed the towel onto the rack and walked toward the elevator, shoulders squared. She didn't look back to see if he followed. Ethan stood alone a moment longer. The noise of the atrium dim behind him, the banner's black letters catching what was left of the light. He exhaled the part of himself that liked aliases and kept the part that could sign a name and mean it. On his phone, a calendar alert chimed. Friday, 5 p.m., weekly, metrics to board and company. On another screen, Tyler Whitman grinned at an audience Ethan no longer wanted. On 7, Priya texted a photo of her couch and a sleeping dog with the caption, 12 hours off. Like the charter says, he typed back a thumbs up he didn't send and put the phone away. There were still 2 days to go. And the thing he could control between now and then was simple. Show up, tell the truth. Tell it again tomorrow. Top of form, bottom of Formby, 7:30 a.m. The 7th floor atrium looked like a quiet courthouse. The banner names, not nouns, hung straight. The war room next door hummed at a low, controlled idle green checks along the wall. A few cautious yellows, no angry red. Someone had taped a new note on the doorframe at eye level. Go, no go is a promise. Ethan did his last lap before. The 9 a.m. go no go. He didn't touch keyboards. He touched Edge's facilities support, the DevX whiteboard, the SRE uncalled binder, asking the same question in different ways. What surprises are left? Answers came back with the confidence of people who knew they were allowed to tell the truth. Maya stood at the center table like a conductor, pencil behind one ear, checklist clean. Dependencies. She asked. Locked, said Priya. Today's SRE lead. Rollbacks. Rehearsed at 2x speed, said a staff engineer, half proud, half wary. Monitoring. Thresholds set. No hero tweaks. Comes. Ava held up 2 drafts in one hand. If everything goes fine, and if it doesn't, the second one's better written, she said, which is how you know we're serious. Ethan took his place at the back wall. Maya didn't look for him, but something in her shoulders eased once he stopped moving. At 8:57, a yellow flickered on the EU canary, latency creeping up on a narrow slice of requests. Not terrible, not nothing. The room quieted without anyone shushing it. Scope. Maya asked. EU West, read heavy path, Priya said. Could be the new cache layer being precious. Options, Maya said. Roll the canary back, Priya said, already hovering over the knob. We can burn 30 minutes and try again. Or we can push and hope it resolves under load. Maya looked across the room to the exception clipboard and then to Ethernet for permission, for a signature. He nodded once. Roll back, she said. 30 minutes. We launch late and honest. Ethan typed into the exception template on the wall tablet, so there'd be no version of this decision that lived only in the air. Exception sponsor, Ethan Cole. Reason, EU, canary latency. Action, delay 30 minute. Roll back, retest. No new features to prod until green. Rest windows enforced if launch slips past. 7. Ava dropped 2 sentences into a custom-only status page. We're taking 30 extra minutes to validate a performance fix in EU West. Thanks for the patience. We'll update at :30. No excuses. No adjectives. The rollback held. The cash tweak landed. At 9:36, the EU Canaries yellow settled into a patient green. Maya tapped her pencil once. Go, go. Priya echoed into the incident channel. At 9:40, Aurora rolled to 50%. At 9:54, it went to 100. The room didn't cheer. It breathed. Then, slowly, there were grins and the careful release of shoulders from ears. Maya ran down the post-deploy checks like a surgeon reading a recovery plan. Error rate. Latency P95. Business KP is within budget, tick up in the good direction, someone said. Surprised at how boring success sounded, support pushed the We're Live note to the customer portal. Ava scheduled 3 tweets for late no thread. No humble bragged and killed the app on her phone so she wouldn't stare at replies. DevX logged their first toil kill since Freeze. The CI cache that used to thrash on large models was now civilized. At 11:05, the first real test arrived. A major customer in the Midwest blasted 5x. The usual traffic at a feature flag they'd been desperate to use. The graph popped like a firework and settled without tripping an alarm. Guardrails working read the SRE channel, followed by 3 of the only emojis allowed in the war room at 12:20. Maya finally exhaled in a way that admitted she hadn't done it all morning. She didn't hive out anyone. She walked to the espresso machine and poured water. Ethan joined her with a paper cup and no speech. You signed the delay, she said. I did, he said. You didn't narrate it, she said. You let the work speak. I'm learning, he said. Keep doing that, she said, and returned to the room before the moment got heavy by 1:30. The graphs were boring enough that someone dared to bring in sandwiches. The new DevX trio cut a sticky note in half and wrote done with a thick markeran inside joke, an outside sign dot at 3 o'clock. Ethan climbed to 42 for the first weekly he'd promised the board and the company. Claudia and David were already in the glass rectangle. The independent directors dialed in. The activist observer was a black square with initials. Ethan put up 4 slides. No gradients, no clip art, deploy frequency. Up 9% week over week, despite a 30-minute delay today. Change failure. Rate, down 31% since the previous 2-week average, MTTR. Improved 22% post-enforced rest windows. Attrition, voluntary. Senior ICs, flat for the first time in 5 months. He didn't use the word miracle. He used the phrase early signal. David added, we have a lot of quarter left, but we're spending less on rework, and we shipped. The former CFO squinted. You'll break it here and there. We'll sign our names when we do, Ethan said, and for once didn't feel the need to wrap it. The activist observer asked about optics. Claudia, who had been stone most of the week, cleared her throat. We gave I a 1 sentence. We run on sustainable pace because it reduces failures and turnover. See our metrics Friday. If asked about the charter, we say it's an internal process change. Full stop. The founder turned investor smiled, actually smiled. Congrats on the boring demo. Boring scales. After, in the hall, Claudia let the door close before she spoke. You bought yourself 3 more weeks with numbers, she said. Use them. Tyler is going to perform you on YouTube until he runs out of ring lights. Then we'll keep being boring, Ethan said. Try, she said, which was as close to good as Ethan had ever heard from her at 4:45. Ava's 2 lines went into Haas General. Weekly metrics posted link. TL, doctor, shipped fewer failures, faster recovery. Have a life tonight. A chorus of green checks stacked under it at 5:02. Ethan posted the same 4 slides to the whole company with 1 sentence at the top. Early days. Keep your pace. He spent the next hour at the espresso table for open hours. The line was shorter than last week, the questions more practical than existential. Badge data policy. Published. On-call rest windows. Managers enforcing. Optional Saturday drama. Died fast in sunlight. At 6:07, the Whitman stream went live. Half the company did not watch. A handful of people hate-watched in group chats. Tyler talked about sustainable speed like he'd coined it last night. He said charters were performance art. He flashed a slide with a blurry still of the 7th floor. The faint text on a badge visible if us QUINTED. Maya saw it because a friend sent a screenshot and because she had told herself to look once and not again. She didn't post about it. She didn't DM anyone. She finished her checklist, told 2 engineers to go home, and then found Ethan by the banner. We launch again next week, she said. Small release, equal discipline. Agreed, he said. Open hours Friday, she asked. Every Friday, he said. She nodded. One more thing, she added. The charter needs a V2. We learned today that a named sponsor isn't enough. We should require a short public post-mortem for any exception, even if the incident isn't ours. Draft it, he said. I'll co-sign. Good, she said. Because promises decay. Process keeps them alive. At 7:10, the floor was down to the hum of cleaning crews and the last stubborn tabs. Ethan stood under the banner long enough to feel foolish and then sat with it, letting the day sink in. They'd slipped 30 minutes on purpose, shipped on purpose. Signed something that didn't fix anything by itself and then acted like it meant what it said. It was not a movie. It was a day that could repeat. On his phone, a text from his mother saw the article about the charter. Is sustainable pace like when I told you to go to bed at 10? He typed, exactly, and added a heart he would not have sent 3 months ago. He walked to the balcony for the last look he'd allow himself. The bay was black glass again. The wind off it was cold enough to file edges. Tomorrow would bring new metrics, new rumors, new tests of whether names meant anything in a building that used to prefer nouns. He put his phone away and chose, again, to show up. 2 weeks later. The banner was a little scuffed, and the pens had gone missing one by one, which felt correct. The charter lived in Confluence and in the incident templates, and as an argument in Slack threads that now ended with links instead of size. Deploys ticked like a metronome steady, rarely dramatic. The Friday metrics slid into inboxes at 5:02 without fanfare. People started to calendar dinners again. On a Wednesday night, Ethan stayed late in a small conference room that looked out over Townsend. The lights made rectangles on the street below. An Enjuda car hissed by, sparks bright and brief. On the table sat 2 printed letters, one on Whitman Dynamics letterhead, offering to de-escalate the arms race with a collaborative ecosystem announcement. The other from the Activist Fund, requesting clarity on headcount plans post-charter. His phone buzzed. A text from Maya, drafted V2, exceptions equals, public post-mortems within 48 hours, also proposing an elected employee council to hold signatures honest. Want to see it? He thumbed back, yes, Monday's stand-up. Same chair? She replied with a single check mark. Ava knocked and leaned in. We got a quiet inquiry from a cloud, she said. Not quite an acquisition, more like strategic partnership with a press release that uses too many adverbs. Park it, Ethan said. We're still installing a spine. Good, Ava said. Because adverbs are how you lie without lying. Down on the 7th floor, the espresso machine clicked off. Someone stuck a new hand-lettered note where the old one had been. Charters don't keep promises. People do. The handwriting wasn't Maya's this time. Ethan looked again at the 2 letters, then slid them both into a folder labeled later and wrote 3 emails instead. 1 to Jamal and David Council, charter draft, please. 1 to IR board letter, same for charts, no adjectives. 1 to Maya, thanks for the delay call on launch day. That 30 minutes was the difference between a story and a mess. He didn't send the last one. He saved it as a draft and closed the laptop. On the elevator down, he counted floors without meaning to. The doors opened on 7. The banner was there, a little dirty, exactly right. He put a hand on the table as if to steady it and realized it was steady on its own. Outside, the city had that late-hour quiet that makes you hear things you talk over at noon. A bus sighed. A bike chain rattled past. He shoved his hands into his jacket and turned left toward the corner. Taquaria, where the grill sizzled and the cook didn't care about charters. Behind him. On some timeline he couldn't control, Tyler would post another video. In front of him, on one he could, was tomorrow's stand-up. The same chair, the same room, the same banner. The ending didn't land. It pivoted. He liked it that way.